This assignment requires the description and summary of the data that we see up here. We are supposed to summarize the data with the construction of a frequency distribution plot and a histogram plot. The second part requires the finding of the mean, median, and mode for these data. So let's see how we use SPSS to analyze the information. So I have opened the SPSS worksheet and this is how it looks like. So I am going to put my data in the very first column. First, I have to make sure I am in the data view, and you will know that by looking at the bottom left corner to see the highlighted tab. The tab here is data view, so I know this worksheet is where I can enter my data. If I were in the variable view, I cannot enter data there. It always has to be entered in the data view. So I have the data view up here. I'm going to enter my data in the first column. In your worksheet, everything that is in the data view has to be entered column by column. So I have a set of scores on the math test and I'm going to enter them in the first column. I have copied it, so I'm just going to go here and paste the data that I have copied. So these are the data, and immediately I pasted the data in there. SPSS gave me a name for the variables and it says they are called VAR00001. That is a default name that SPSS will give. I don't want that name, so I have to change it. And the only way I can change it is to go from the data view here to the variable view by clicking the second tab. So if I click the variable view, the name that SPSS gave me, VAR00001, is here. And I need to type my own name. And the name for the data that I entered in the data view are scores on a test or grade, whichever is appropriate. So I say grade, and I'm going to double click here and clean that up and type my appropriate name for the variables that I entered in the data view, and these are grades. So I've typed grades on there. The next column that you need to be aware of is the label. Yeah, the type of variables that we entered is numeric, so SPSS knows that. The width that is allowed is 8. The decimal points that is going to be used is 2. The label is important because I have to explain what the grades are. Oh, by the way, you can only type about 8 characters under name without spaces. It's important. You cannot leave spaces in whatever you type under names. It has to be all without space. 8 characters. Under label, I can type sentences if I wanted, but it's no good thing to type a long sentence. You just want to type something that will help you remember what the name is that you've given here. So I'm going to give grade as scores on a test. So scores on a math test is the name that I've given the variable grades that I've given here. That is the label that goes with the name. Now I have values and there is none because I'm not looking at grouping variables here. It's just all one set of data. Are there missing variables? No, I don't. Columns are 8 is aligned to the right. The next thing that is the most important, the most crucial, is under measure. And that is where you tell SPSS what the nature of the variable is that you have entered in the data view. The variable that I've entered there are on the interval or ratio scale. And in SPSS, whether the variables are in the interval or ratio scale, they are all considered as scale variables. So if I click in this cell, I have scale, ordinal, and nominal. I know what I'm looking for is the scale variable. So that's what I'm going to select, scale. So remember, three important things to do when you come to the variable view. The name that you give, don't go with the default name that SPSS gives you. You have to give a name that reflects whatever the problem is that you are working on. In this case, the scores that we have are grades on a test. So I said grades. The label is the second thing that you have to tell SPSS what it is. And for me, it's scores on a test. And here I can type a sentence or a phrase to describe the variables that I've put in there, in this case grades. The third and the most important thing is to define for SPSS what the scale of the measurement is that you are using. And for this, it is the scale variables. So I've got all the three things that I need in SPSS. Now I can go and look at what I'm supposed to do. There is one place that you will always go to do whatever analysis that you are going to do in SPSS, and that is analyze. So if I click on analyze, I am looking at descriptive statistics. So the second thing here is descriptive statistics, and I'm looking at frequencies. So I select frequencies, and this pop-up menu comes up. The variables that are entered in the data view are now listed here. Scores on a test is exactly the label that I gave it. I have to move it under the variables column in order for it to be analyzed. So I highlight it, and it's always going to show you that it's highlighted by turning to yellow. And then clicking on the middle arrow here, and I put it under variables. The second thing that is important to check is this. By default, SPSS has checked display frequency tables for me. I want to keep that because it is part of what I'm supposed to do with the data that have been given to analyze. So I've got my display frequency tables checked, and the variables are in the right place. The third thing that I am supposed to do is to find, if you go to the second item on the question that I have to look at, is supposed to look at the mean, the median, and the mode, the three measures of central tendency. And the way I can get those statistics is to click the statistics button. If I click it, this pop-up shows. And under central tendency, I have mean, median, mode. I need these three, so I check them. Mean, median, and mode. And I'm done here. I click continue. The second thing that I have to look out for is that on the first question, I have to find the frequency distribution table and then the histogram. Already, my frequency distribution table has been checked for me, so that is done. I now have to look at this chart and select histogram, and that is going to show when I do my analysis. So I've checked all that I need to check in order for SPSS to run the analysis. So I click continue, and now that I've set everything up, I click OK. And SPSS does its thing, and it comes up with the results. So this is my frequency distribution table. But before we come to that, let's look at the statistics. The statistics that I needed were mean, median, and mode for the data entered, and these are here. The mean is 18.3750, the median is 18, and the mode is 21. That is the highest frequency in terms of the scores that I've got. So all of these are here. I've answered question number 2. Question number 1 asks for the frequency distribution table, and this is the frequency distribution table. In the gray area here are the scores that I entered in SPSS. It has been rearranged from the lowest to the highest, and this column is the frequency of the score. That is how often that particular score occurs in the set of data, which means for the frequency of 2, 2 occurs only one time, 5 occurs only one time, 10 occurs 2 times. The highest frequency we have is 21. It occurs 4 times, and that is why it is the mode, the score with the highest frequency. All of these have been converted into percentages, and the cumulative percentage is here. So that answers my frequency distribution table. The last thing that I need is my histogram, and the histogram is down here. So I have got all the information that I need. The next thing that I have to do is to put this in a form that enables me to upload it. The way you do that, and this is crucial, you are not going to save that information, the information here. What you need to do is export the information. And the way you do it is to go under File, and this button here says Export. So I click that, and I wait for SPSS to show me what options I have. It says, are you going to export everything? And I say, yes, I'm exporting all. It by default tells me that it is going to be exported as Word or RTF format document. Now, you can do it this way, but it is not advisable, because when you upload it, there could be shifts because it may not be set the way you see it now. The best way to export it is to export it as portable document format, PDF. So I click here and I select PDF. That retains everything the way I see it as presented in this output that I have. The next thing that I have to look for is, what is the file name? The file name that I'm going to give my document. I'm just going to ignore this name. I don't want it. So for me to find out the right place to save the information that I have here, I have to browse first. So I browse, and I have 2 options that I can suggest to you. If you are not aware, all of the students in this course have access to their T drive. I believe ITTS sets up T drives for every student. So in case you don't know, just check here. When you click browse, you come to this screen, and you can click here to see whether you have a T drive. I know I have a T drive, and this is my T drive. But in case you don't have it and you don't want to save your information to your T drive, you can have the option of saving it to a flash drive. I have a flash drive, so I'm going to save it to my flash drive, and I know my flash drive is on K. So I select this, and SPSS takes some time to identify that. On the flash drive, I have a folder called Assignments. I select that, open it. It takes a while to open up. It's a clean folder, and I give it a name, and the name I'm going to give is Demo. Okay, so that's the name, and I click Save. Now it shows up here that the information is going to be saved on my flash drive in the folder Assignments, and the name is going to be Demo. So I'm happy with that, and then now I can click OK to save it. So remember the steps. When you come here, check to make sure that all is selected. Change the Word RTF to portable document format. The next thing that you do is you browse to see whether you have a T drive. If you have a T drive, you can save it there. But if you're not comfortable, then save it to a flash drive. My flash drive is on the K, and then I give it a name, Demo, and I save it there. So it shows here as the file name. Now if I click OK, the information is going to be saved on my flash drive. If you don't want the flash drive and you have a T and you want to save it there, save it on the T drive. But these are the only two options, either your flash drive or the T drive. Don't save it in any other format or any other place. This is crucial. Now that I've done it and I've set it up, I can click OK, and the information is exported to my flash drive. If you selected the T drive, it will go to your T drive, so that when you go to Canvas, you can browse to where that information is and you can upload it from that place to your Canvas assignment portal. That is what you need to do.